No, what's that? What's that? What's that?
Hey, morning everybody. So well done yesterday on everyone's Plan ID test number 3. Best test ever. Amazing. Anyway, this I put this together kind of just to help a little bit with the vegetables. It's kind of cobbled together with images over the last few years that we'll look at and kind of explain, such as this little video of the boys kind of helping me with the irrigation. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So this is just to help, right, with Plan ID test number 4 coming up on Thursday. I'm sure everybody will do just fine though. Okay, let's get rolling. This image is obviously of the children and I. It's about March of 2018, and we're outside. Nice, um, sunny afternoon, and we're sowing our indoor crops. The timing of some indoor crops or some vegetables is really important. I've learned that the hard way, that planting peppers in April is what's going to, like, they're going to grow all summer and probably not produce too much. So it's important to start. The timing is really important in some vegetables, specifically the Solanaceae, meaning peppers, tomatoes, and eggplants. We start those indoors, especially peppers, right in mid February. Ipomia is another one that I'll get into in a little while, but try to remember that different vegetables have different timing, and it's as important to know how to grow it as when to grow it, for vegetables starting them indoors. This is a pretty good example of what I'm talking about, where it looks like we're sowing some of the plants that we had started indoors. That's the tray that Krista, my wife, is holding. But I'll get through that information when we go. You can see that onions have already been planted in this slide. So onions we do in sets. We buy sets or seed, either or. Usually you don't really start them indoors, but you can. You can do the seeds indoors if you felt like it. Typically we don't. I buy onion sets, which is a small bulb, almost like an offset, if you will. Pretty good information to know there, but it grows from the basal plate of last year's onion, and it's a small bulb. Okay, um, that moves us into our first plant, Allium cepa in the Amaryllidaceae. This is more of a review for you folks because we learned this in bulbs, but it's good to know anyway. I'm sure all of you have seen it and eaten it. Nice plant to grow. In the next slide, I'll show you how we grow it on a little bit in our gardens. Something that I've figured out kind of the hard way a little bit. You can see here I'm experimenting with different stuff in the onion. So we plant onions in early spring. You saw a couple of slides ago when we were all planting out. The onions were already planted long ago, and I guess that day it looks like we were just judging on the distance. We were planting what looks like tomatoes. We were planting tomatoes out, but within the onions, because they come up and they're kind of done. We plant them twice. We plant them in early spring and um, kind of midsummer to last into the fall, and from onion sets. What I do with these rows is I planted eggplant. So that is, I interplanted eggplant because eggplant is one of those that takes the full season. We started from seed, like tomatoes and peppers, and it just takes forever. So usually by like end of August, we're starting to get our eggplants. Maybe the beginning of August, but it takes a while, and the onions are long gone. So I interplanted um, this year onions and eggplants, and it looks like I also have a bit of cilantro in there, which didn't work well because it was really hard to shear it back. And if you remember from our herb presentation, cilantro needs to be cut back on a regular basis, otherwise it bolts, it flowers, and then it goes to seed, and you lose the taste of the leaves. So it didn't work out so well to put cilantro in with the onions, but the eggplant worked really well. Next one on our list is Beta vulgaris. What a great plant! Like I went out in the morning and picked this and had it for breakfast. Like it just life doesn't get any better, walking in the garden. You'll see in our next slide what we sowed some beets as a class in the greenhouse and what they're looking like now. They're sown a little bit close together, but that's fine. They will work. Please click on this link and have a look at the video, and also from the what am I looking for? The spreadsheet that I put together. Know the different types of Beta vulgaris. There's a few different types like sugar beets and chard or spinach leaves, and then the actual bulb itself. So please know that stuff. Here's another quick image. This was in our garden, not last year, the year before. And so we had the onions, and then next door were the beets. Each row is 50 feet. And yeah, we did one row of beets last or 2 years ago. Last year we did a few and kind of staggered them. Great plant, pretty easy to grow. Doesn't need too much. I don't typically thin them as much as I should, just because I really don't. I have a hard time doing that. But they grow better thinned. I kind of let them just hang around for a while, and eventually they produce lots of different varieties or of the um, rooted ones, not the sugar beet ones, but the actual rooted ones. We have a yellow one. There's candy ones. This cylindrica is the one we typically grow now, and it's a cylinder shaped, really nice beet. Next plant on our list is asparagus, right? Asparagus officinalis. Interesting plant. Yeah, it's different than most other vegetables. Takes a while to get going, especially from seed. Like we're talking 3 years before it really gets rolling. And how to harvest it. Have a look. I'll put some links here, and click on those links to kind of get a better example of asparagus. If you've ever grown it, you know what I'm on about. If you haven't grown it, it's a cool plant. The root zone, or the root system, is massive. My mother-in-law is digging up asparagus for our new house, and she's dug a meter by a meter and wants me to come and lift it. It's about 30 centimeters deep. But anyway, and that's like one clump. Really good for holding in along a riverbank or a stream that gets flooded. It will really hold the bank well because the root system is so robust and so thick. But if you're going to grow it from seed, you need a little bit of seeds and lots of patience. There's male and female plants. I think the links kind of talk about that, but male and female plants. Male plants don't worry about producing seed, so typically are a better harvest commercially. However, this is from our garden. Last week I went out looking for some, and we grow it with real what is it? You dip it in sugar, rhubarb. So you can see the rhubarb is coming up and starting to do its thing, but the asparagus is still well underground. Here's some. If you click on it, you'll see some of the seeds that I just opened up. And what we do is like it's next to the barn. We never even look at it. Just go pick it in the spring, kind of month of April, and then that's it. And then it will grow up in flowers, set seeds, and kind of reseeds itself. And that's just what we do. We don't really have to worry too much about it. It kind of hangs out with the rhubarb. They're good friends. You see them oftentimes in older farms or older houses. They're grown together, making a nice combination, the two of them. So these next four are pretty interesting. So Brassica oleracea, you would know most of them, right? The variety is what's important. So like this capitata is cabbage, but you also have kale, broccoli, cauliflower are all Brassica oleracea. So we typically, like this was 2 years ago, and you can see this image I'm holding, lovely red cabbage, but we get weevils and so many things with Brassica oleracea that I almost don't grow it now. The kale is okay; it's probably the hardiest of them, but I plant it late in the season because it's almost like frost tolerant, and even a light frost that won't hurt it. And Krista makes the chips out of it, like potato chips, not French fries. Um, and so we do kale, but otherwise there's always issues with it, and you need to be careful. You can wrap it, and it will grow under a shade cloth, a light shade. It's almost like a really like a screen, and it tends to keep some of the insects out. But it's like you name it, and these are going to get it. Brassica oleracea. Nice plant to have in your garden, but you're probably going to need to manage the insects, the pressures. This is an image of the stuff that we were growing in our in the greenhouse. Interesting that quite a bit of our plants actually have aphids, believe it or not. I went to the greenhouse. Oh, sorry, emails are coming. Um, anyway, I went to the greenhouse and picked up all of our vegetables so I could take some videos. I'm having a hard time with our internet. High speed internet's coming. Satellite internet is what I've had to do to get internet in the country. But I won't have that until later in the week, and I wanted to get this out to you. So hopefully I can have time. But our the plants that we have grown in the greenhouse, a lot of them are covered in aphids, and these are no different. If you kind of click back and forth between the last slide and this slide, you'll see the difference. At this stage, it's really hard to tell the difference between Brassica oleracea variety botrytis, otherwise known as cauliflower, and Brassica oleracea variety italica, otherwise known as broccoli. Right? It's the same plant, just different variety. Pretty interesting, right? I bet you didn't know that. I didn't when I started teaching this class. I knew it, but I didn't know it specifically. It was just a small variety. Pretty interesting, those four.